Welcome to the Writing on My Mind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emanuela Stanislaus, doctorate coach and diversity consultant. I finished my doctorate in 4 years while working a full-time job, traveling the world, and balancing a busy social life. And now I'm on a mission to create community for women of color to complete their doctorate degrees. Join me and my friends as we discuss the ups and downs of pursuing a doctorate degree and helping others to level up as doc students. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Writing on Your Mind podcast. I am your host, Dr. Emanuela Stanislaus, and today we have a treat for you. I am so excited to be joined by my guest today, Dr. Kristal McGreggor. She's going to join us in a little bit, but I saw her online. I saw an interview of her, and I was just so moved by her story and thought that I have to get her on the show, and she is here today to drop some gems with you all and get you all moving forward in your doctorate programs. And before we jump into her interview, I'm going to give a little bio, share a little bit about her so that you can get to know her, and then we'll talk a little bit about her journey. So she was born and raised on the beautiful island of Jamaica, and she migrated to the United States when she was 16 years old. Dr. Kristal McGreggor received her bachelor's degree in marketing and master's degree in sports administration from Hampton University. She recently graduated from the University of Michigan from the School of Kinesiology with her Ph.D. in sports management. And I just want to welcome her to the show right now.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. I cannot wait for you to, drop your gems here like you normally do based off of the videos I've seen you on. So thank you so much for being here.
No
Why don't
problem.
you, tell us a little bit about, what made you decide to pursue your PhD?
um, I'm going to be completely honest. That's the first thing. So, if I'm be to be totally transparent, the reason why I went for my PhD was because I had two professors at Hampton University who they wouldn't stop pressuring me to get a PhD. Believe it or not, I was
Your
I was
pressure.
right. I was working on my master's at the time. I was also working at Hampton, serving as an assistant track and field coach and a director of operations. And I figured, why not work on my master's, to get an increase in my salary and stuff. And while I was in class, I remember sitting in the class, sports government, and my professor, he would always pick on me. Like, I would be in the class, not answering any questions, just minding my business. And he's like, "So, Kristal, do you have anything to say?" And in my mind, I wanted to say, "No, I don't." Right? That's why I didn't raise my hand.
Exactly.
But he will always pick on me, and I will always have to find a way to answer these questions. And of course, I did, right? Until one day I went to his office because I really wanted to know what was going on. And I said to him, I said, "Doc, I'm like, why is it that you keep picking on me in class? Like, even when I have nothing to say, you keep picking on me." And he laughed and he said, "I know you're frustrated, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he said to me, he said, "Because I see something great inside of you. And I want you to think about getting your PhD." And without hesitation, I said, "No." I said, "Nope." I said, "No." And you see, the thing is, like, at that time, I really responded from a space of fear, right? Because the things that he saw within in me, I couldn't see within myself. And I couldn't understand, like, why he wanted me to go for a PhD program. Like, I couldn't see it. Because if I'm being totally honest, at age 15, when I was in high school, I had a teacher who told me that I would never graduate from high school. And so when he said, "Hey, you should go for a PhD," immediately the first thing that came to my mind was this thought from what my teacher said: "You'll never make it to college. You'll never graduate." And so what happened was, when he told me that, I was in this space where I felt like I was just making it by luck. Right? I was able to graduate high school. I was able to get my bachelor's and I was able to get my master's. But I'm not there going to try to get a PhD because I might just blow my cover, right? And so I really put that to the side. And of course, he was persistent. He kept coming. He kept coming until he ended up connecting me with another professor, Dr. Hall, and her approach was different, right? Where he would pick on me in class, she wouldn't pick on me. She would just text me or she would email me, and she's like, "Hey, come to my office." And when I showed up at her office, she would always say, "Oh, there's a call tomorrow that I want you to join me on, and I need you to come up with questions." And I'm looking at her like, questions for what, right? And these were calls like with PhD programs, with the deans and stuff. And I was like, okay, all right, I guess I have to do it, right? And so what ended up was the first call we did was with the University of Michigan. And that's when I met Dr. Keetra Armstrong. And, I sat and I listened to her talk about the graduate program at the University of Michigan. I had no interest in it. I was just in the room because I was being respectful. And I listened to everything that she said. And, she talked about the program and how, you could get funded and all these good stuff. And I left that room and I went and I sat with one of my mentors and I said, today I had a conversation with the dean at the University of Michigan, and she's looking for a PhD student. And she said, "Oh, are you thinking about it?" And I said, "No, I'm not thinking about it." And she's like, "Well, Michigan is a great institution, and they're R1 institution." At that time, I had no idea what an R1 institution was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like I knew nothing about research, nothing of that sense. And I was like, "That's good to know." And she's like, "You should think about it." And I was like, "Okay, I will." But as time went by, so I want to say that was roughly around what, October 2014, when we had that first conversation, and time went by. And I remember around January of 2015, my mentor gave me a call and we were talking, and she was just checking in, and she said to me, "I didn't receive your letter of recommendation." And I'm like, "For what?" And she's like, "For the University of Michigan." And I'm like, "What's at the University of Michigan?" And she's like, "The PhD program." Oh, because I'm not going. And when like when your parent or your mentor, they go silent, like what it means. Like there's a meaning
Mm-hmm.
with that silence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I just shut up because I knew what I needed to do. And she said nothing. She only said, "Okay, well, you enjoy the rest of your day." And we ended our conversation. And
Oh,
when I got off
wow.
the phone, I pulled out my computer. I was actually in North Carolina for work at the time. I pulled out my computer and I started looking. And I saw that the deadline was literally 4 days away.
Mm,
And in my mind, I'm like, how am I going to get a PhD application done in 4 days?
wow.
That's not possible. And I started writing my personal statements, and I started writing all these different statements that you have to write. And as soon as I got back to Hampton, I went and I got my transcripts and everything together. And like I really remember like rushing to FedEx to
Mm,
get the package to be overnight so they could have it by the deadline, right? And it's so if I'm being honest, it's really between Dr. Hall, Dr. Livingston, and Dr. Elliott. They all were the one who kind of pushed me towards getting a PhD. I still didn't know what I was about to do, but I knew I needed to do it because I had three people who believed in me. They saw something great, and they believed that this was great for me. So why not go for it, right?
yeah. I love that story, and I remember, the video that I saw you were talking about your high school um, teacher or one of the counselors, saying, that horrible statement about you not being able to accomplish anything. I don't even know how these people work in education, but I remember that, and then now too with you sharing. Um, a couple of things stood out to me. I that you saw that someone or one of your professors said that I see something great in you.
Right.
And then also operating in a place of fear,
Hmm.
and how that can hold us back. And
Yes.
then you also said blowing your cover, like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, there's so much. To me, I
Right.
was like, oh my gosh, yeah, somebody's gonna find out I'm a fraud. And I could
Yes.
totally relate to that. I know that's a lot in there, but, like, how did, I guess we'll take the first 2 things, like, how did those people seeing the greatness in you, like, play out throughout your doctoral, um journey, and like how did that maybe interplay with the fear factor, because I'm sure the place of fear
Right.
still continued while you were pursuing your doctorate.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the journey, we're having Dr. Lewis and Dr. Hall and Dr. Elliott in my corner. I knew that I could do anything, right? They were like they're gonna gas me up, right? They
Mm,
whatever I needed, they would do that. And
mhm,
so as I navigated the space of being a first gen PhD student, right? Stepping out. First of all, I left Virginia and decided to go to Michigan by myself. I had nobody here. My family lived in New York at the time. I had a few family and friends in Virginia, but I had to leave that behind, right? And that was my
mhm,
support system. That was my safe space. And now here I am in Michigan. I absolutely knew no one.
mm,
And I remember coming in and, I struggled with these thoughts, right? I struggled with the idea, like I said, I struggled with imposter syndrome. I struggled with what if they found out that I'm not good enough? Like, what if they found out that, I'm not the smartest? Like, what is going to happen? Right. And then I had moments when I started questioning, like, did they make a mistake with accepting me? And not just accepting me, but they even gave me a funding. Like, I had one of the highest funding in the institution for 5 years. Like,
mm,
are they going to find out like this is a fluke? Like, what's going to happen, right? So all these questions were there, right? I struggled with anxiety. I struggled with depression. And if I'm being honest with you, there were moments when I even struggled with suicidal thoughts. And it
mm,
was because, like, I wanted to succeed. I wanted to make these individuals proud. But then deep within me, like, I felt like I couldn't do it, right? I felt
mm,
like like I said, this idea that, Kristal, you're gonna fail, is only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before it happens. But in the midst of this journey, the beautiful thing about it, and it's something that I really appreciate, is that going through these downs and dealing with these struggles and facing these hard questions really put me in a position where I was now able to seek therapy, right?
mm,
I was able to
mhm,
seek therapy and start to unpack some of these traumas, right? Some of these things that I didn't even realize that what my teacher said to me in high school had so much impact on the way I operated as an adult.
wow.
And so everything that seemed to be new, whenever I had to step outside of my comfort zone, that child, that 15-year-old child, will always remember what was said, and that's how I would respond. I will respond from the fear. I will respond from the doubt because somebody that I looked up to once said that I wasn't good enough,
Mm,
right? But when I started doing therapy and I started having these transparent conversations and being vulnerable with my therapist, it really helps me to realize that that's not who I am, right? In fact, I even proved my teacher wrong because now I'm working on a PhD, right? So I had to realize that I overcame that, and I had to unlearn, and I had to find ways to deal with the trauma and deal with the pain and deal with the frustration. And it's the journey of this PhD program that really allowed me to recognize that. I even realized how, like, I found community here in Michigan. Like, I had two very good friends, Dr. Jolly and Dr. Nixon. They also graduated this past year, and they became my sisters. We were in complete different programs, but we had a relationship or a connection and a friendship where we could be authentic and we could share anything and everything that was happening. And that became my safe space. They became my safe space. And so when the downs came about, like, not only would I go to them, but I also have the people, my professors, right? They'll be in my corner. So whenever I felt like I couldn't do it, I will call them and they will reassure me, and that did something for me, right?
yeah.
And then I had my friends here that they really pushed me. Like, whenever I hit a milestone, whenever I did something good, they're like, Kristal, let's celebrate. Let's recognize that you did this, you overcame this, right? So in other words, like, I guess they provided me with words of affirmation to let me realize that I'm actually built for this. And I don't think I could ever repay them for how much they poured into me over the last 5 to 6 years. And it's their support and continued, just being there, understanding what I'm going through, has really been beneficial to help me to overcome this, or to
Oh,
navigate this journey.
definitely. And again, there was a lot in that what you just shared too that I'm hoping I can like you know, dive into a little bit. I think one of the first things that I definitely don't want to, you know, ignore is that piece about mental health,
Right.
and you talked about how it seemed like some of this stuff didn't bubble up until you got into your PhD program.
Mhm.
And, I think a lot of people may experience that too, like, they're fine, and then you go into this thing where it requires so much mental, energy, your emotions, all of the
Yes.
physical energy, and so I can definitely see how mental health could be impacted, and I personally, can attest to that too, having to deal with mental health, issues while pursuing it.
Right.
How did you know that you needed help, and how did you, um, find that help?
Right. So this is what actually happened. I was taking an exam my first year. I was in a class. I think it's diversity in sports. And my advisor was actually the teacher at that time and professor at that time. And I remember sitting looking at the paper and everything went blank.
Mm,
And I'm like, what in the world is this? Like, this is the midterm. This is a big chunk of my grade, right?
mhm,
And I have to pass this exam, but everything went blank. And so I remember getting up, rushing to the bathroom, like I was breathing so hard and nothing. I couldn't remember anything. And remind you, I had studied. I was prepared. I was ready for this test. And I went back in and I turned the paper in and, I stood outside and I waited on my advisor to get out. And I said, I need to talk to you. And I said, I don't know what happened. Like everything went blank just now. And, she brought me to her office and she asked me, what's happening. And I told her and she said, well, if I asked you the questions now, would you be able to provide me with the answers? I was able to articulate and to answer the questions. But when I looked at the paper, nothing, like I couldn't write anything. And she said to me, she said, Kristal, I think you just suffered from a panic attack.
wow,
And, she's like, while I'm here to support you, I'm here for you. No matter what you need, I'm going to be here to support you. But I think you need to get therapy. You need to see somebody outside other than me. And that's when, I went through to the university and signed up with the CAPS program. And I got matched with a therapist who was amazing. To this day, we have an amazing relationship. Um, and that's how I started the journey. And like I said, once I got in, it's like, okay, I went there for school and stuff. But then I realized there were so many other areas that needed to be worked on.
mhm,
So
wow.
yeah.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And I mean, how I think you're so blessed to have these three people who just seem to just look out for you and
Yeah.
support you in so many different ways. And I'm also assuming that this professor, she was a black woman.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think too, some people don't have that opportunity to have um professors who are
Right.
black women or
Right.
just
Right.
black, right?
Right. Right.
Who
Right.
can see the human side of us and can see that we're, perhaps going through some things and make accommodations and provide us to the right resources. So, I'm glad that you were able to have that in her. In your response to you talked a little bit about building community
Right.
and finding your safe space, which I am a big proponent of as well. Like,
Right.
I am trying to build up this writing on my mind community to with women of color who are supporting each other, lifting each other up. And so, like, tell me, how did you, these women, you said they weren't in your program. So how did you
Yeah.
find them? How did you make that connection and continue that, I guess the connection
Right.
overall?
It's super. It's the way it panned out. Like this is how I knew. Like even God was in this whole process because when I came to Michigan, I was a part of the Rackham Merit Fellowship program, and that's like I said, that's one of the highest funded the university offers. And so what happened is I had to come in. I came in about a week before school actually started, and I went through a program for like a week and a half. And the first person that I met was Dana. And Dana was in the School of Education, but we connected, right? In those different little workshops that we had to do, we connected. And so we exchanged numbers and we stayed in touch. And then it so happened that I started taking courses in School of Education. So I wanted to, my research course, qualitative research course, I took it in School of Education. And Dana was in that class. And the professor was her mentor, right? And so we kind of connected there. And then Jalicia, she's Jamaican as well, and I'm Jamaican. And so we met at a Caribbean event that was happening, and we connected, we exchanged numbers, we stayed in touch. And then it so happened that we took an ethnographic course together. And then Dana was also in that course, right? Because even though our research were different, like we had a lot of similarities in terms of the research method that we used. And so that really helped us. And then I want to say Dana and I took almost like every course that I took outside of my program, Dana was in that class with me. And so we developed that bond. We developed that connection where we'll just check in just to have conversations, right? And that's really how I was able to build that community outside of my department. Within my department, it's I didn't have that much. I want to say there wasn't a lot of connection within my department, but I was sure to find it outside. And those individuals were amazing, and they really helped me, like I said. And then, of course, I had friends that they weren't here in Michigan, and they tried their best to support me. But I also felt that at some times they didn't really understand what I was going through, because they weren't necessarily going through a PhD program with me, but they tried their best to meet me where I was at. And, sometimes I felt guilty because I couldn't be, that friend to them in those seasons, right? Because we have to make sacrifices. So when they're going on trips and I'm like, hey, I can't, I can't come now, and these things. And so I felt guilty at times, right?
Yeah.
But with Dana and Jalicia, I didn't have to feel that way because they understood. They were also dealing with the pressures of going through a PhD program. They knew what was happening. So it was easier for me to express to them certain things as it related to my PhD program.
Awesome. I like that piece of advice, that sometimes you may not have that connection with people within your program, and that's okay.
Right.
You can find connections with other folks that are in other PhD programs, or even, your friends that decided not to pursue a PhD program. So I appreciate that comment for sure.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about like what you wish you knew about um, pursuing your doctorate before you started your program?
Wow. Man, I wish somebody had told me that you should continue to network with professionals outside of academia. Like, I really wish somebody had told me that, right? And the reason why I say that is because, one, I I knew, like, around my second year, I knew that I didn't want to go into academia.
Mm,
Like, I enjoy teaching; it's something that I hope to do one day. But I knew that starting off my career, that wasn't the road that I wanted to take. Right. And so I wanted to work in athletics. I still do. And, I want to approach it from the practical side where, I'm either working with student athletes as an academic advisor, or just being able to be in a position within athletics that gives voice and influence to the policies and the practices that impact the student athlete experience, or even to work with marketing for an athletic program. And
mhm.
so I figured, hey, I got a PhD, right? That's the highest level of education right there. Like, they're gonna want me. No.
Mm,
Right, new shock, right? Okay.
mm,
And so I didn't, like, I really wish like somebody would have told me, hey, while you're doing that, you should still network with people outside of academia, and you should probably get some experience in the area that you want to go into. Because, to be honest with you, I think now that I have a PhD, the last 5 years, I've just been doing research. And so when you look at my CV, that's what you see, right? I'll go on interviews and they'll say, but, you don't have any experience. And I'm like, the experience from doing a PhD, like, these are transferable skills. Like, yeah,
yeah.
and they're like, not really, So I really wish somebody that would have told me that, the teaching and the research and all that good stuff is great. But if you don't want to stay in academia, you definitely need to be getting the experience some way, somehow. so that when you're done, it's easier for you to mesh the two. So you still have the experience and you still have a PhD.
Definitely. Like that is gold advice. Yeah, like it's seriously because the like hopefully everybody's listening like will understand when you're pursuing these PhD programs, a lot of times the programs are built to push out people who are
Yes.
going to go the academic route, right?
Yes.
So like you had your teaching assistant experiences, you were researching, you were helping faculty,
Mhm.
work on their research, you were publishing. All of those are things that the academy loves, right? So
Right.
it's setting you up for those faculty roles. But what faculty don't really talk about is what if you want to go in the industry or what if you
Right.
want to go the admin route?
Mhm.
What are some things that you could be doing that will set you up so that people um can appreciate that experience
Right.
and value it for the roles that you're looking for. So super great advice. So I would yeah, we can't downplay the I guess the benefits of networking.
Right.
So yeah, thanks for that. So with that in mind, like, what are you doing now that you have completed your program, and how does it relate to the research that you've done as well?
Right. So in April, right, right before this craziness happened, before everything was shut down, like I was able to secure an adjunct position at a community college here in Michigan. And fortunately, due to low enrollment, they had to cancel that position. And so then, I was without a job. But then I was able to secure a part-time position now where I work with Michigan Athletics as an academic mentor. And I absolutely love it, right? I absolutely love it, but at times it feels as if I'm starting over.
Mm,
At times it feels kind of weird, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity because ultimately I do want to work in athletics, right? And so now the job that I'm in is not related to my PhD, to my research at all. It's just the only thing that is related to is the fact that it's sports,
mhm,
and it's with athletes, and I was a student athlete. But in terms of like my research and the program that I'm in, it's not related directly to it. But I'm still currently still applying for jobs, but I know right now with COVID, it's the process is not what I expected it to be, and so I'm
mhm,
just being patient, just appreciating what I have, just learning how to grow in this season and
mhm.
networking, and definitely trusting the process.
Awesome. And you never know who's listening. You wanna
Right.
tell the people what you're looking for in terms of
Absolutely. I really want to work in academics. I mean, with student athletes. I enjoy working with student athletes, being mentor to them, academic advisors, just really guiding them along that path. So anything along the line of academic counseling or advising, or even if I have to get back to like marketing, because I do enjoy that piece of consumer behavior and understanding consumers' needs and wants, and taking what the consumers need, and creating marketing strategies and implications to ensure that their experience are worthwhile.
Love it. Yes. So everyone listening, look out for Crystal, and the
Right.
opportunities that she's looking for. So, what do you think are three things that helped you succeed in your program?
Mm. Wow. The first thing is God, and I wouldn't have been able to do this without God. um, there were moments when I literally felt like I was gonna just die. Like I wanted to quit, but he wouldn't allow me to. So he's the first one that I couldn't do this without him, having a relationship with him. Then secondly, it would have to be my advisor, Dr. Keitra Armstrong.
Mm,
Amazing woman, just loving, kind, patient. She met me where I was when I first started this program, and she never got angry at me. Like she was so patient, like so patient. I know, and I know some days I probably did frustrate her, but she never showed that, right? So she definitely was in my corner 24/7 to ensure that I was successful. And then lastly, to my village, right? So this includes my family, my mom, my sisters, my nieces, my nephews, because there were moments whenever I wanted to quit, I will always remember them that, hey, you're doing this for them, right? It's not just about you, you're doing this for them. I
Yeah.
think about my friends that they've been there from the start. Catherine, Dakota, Claudia, like these people, they've been there from the start, every single step of the way. Elisa, they've been there. And no matter what, even when I wanted to give up, they wouldn't let me, right? And then even just like my mentors, right? Dr. Livingston, Dr. Hall, Dr. Elliott, they, they were just amazing. So these are like the people that really, these are the three things that really helped me to get through.
Love it. And one thing too that I know you spoke about a little bit of in the beginning was the whole you were working.
Right.
And I know I worked full time while getting my PhD, and that is another another level of, craziness. So, like, tell me, like, what was it like doing that? I'm guessing you worked full were you working full time as well?
No.
And okay.
So this is perfect that I'm no longer a student, so I could share this now. So you get the first story. So when I started my program, because I got funded, I wasn't allowed to work. They
Oh.
tell you like you're fully funded. Your job is to focus on research, right? However, my funding never covered summer.
Mm,
And so in my mind,
okay.
I'm like, well, how do I survive in the summertime?
Exactly, exactly. Some of these things make no sense.
Right. You're creating all these rules, but then like how do I survive in the summertime? Like, do I tell my apartment complex, hey, I'm just working on research and I can't work? Like you get what I'm saying? And so I had to find a job. And the first semester, the first year, actually, my first year, I actually applied for a grant and I got it. So that had took care of my first summer. Then my second summer, I applied for another grant. I got it, but it wasn't enough.
Mm,
And what I ended up doing was I applied for a job at the YMCA here, Ann Arbor YMCA here, and I got it. And it was a full time job, and it was in the summertime, and it's to be a director of teen adventure camp director, right? So I would take these kids on adventures every single day. So I had to be at work from like 8 o'clock to like 4. And
mhm,
I remember I couldn't tell my advisor because I didn't want her to be like, well, it's taken away from your research and all these things within our
mhm.
space, within our field. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to make this work. And I remember like having meetings with my advisor, and I'll be like, well, can we set it for this particular time? Like, can it be at 2? Because I knew at 2 o'clock I'll be on lunch, right? And I
Mm.
could just run to campus real quick. I could run to campus real quick. And I remember one particular day I had to go to campus and I had my YMCA shirt on. And I would literally take clothes with me. I would go in my office and I would change. I would change and I would go and meet with her and we would talk. And she's like, how's everything? Everything is good. And, telling her everything. And then I would go back to my office, change and put my YMCA stuff on and head back to work. And I did
Wow.
that for in like 2 summers, right? Because
Mhm.
I needed to be able to pay my bills. And the great thing about it was my supervisor at the time, Abby Davis, she was amazing and she understood. I was able to share everything with her and she understood what I was dealing with. And so, she was very flexible, allowing me to come in a little bit later because some days I'll be tired because like I'll go to work from 8 to 4. I will come home, I will get something to eat, and then I'll leave my house to get back to my office to start writing.
Wow.
And I'll be writing like from like 6 to 10 o'clock. And then I'm driving back home and I'm just coming to bed to get back up to head to work the next morning. It was draining, but I
Yeah.
needed to get it done. I,
Yeah.
like that was the only way I was going to keep the lights on. But then I also knew I had a responsibility to get my papers done, right? I still had to write my research. I still had to meet the deadlines with my advisor. My committee members, they were waiting too, and it's not. I don't. I wouldn't even say they don't care. They do. They care to some extent, But I think most times they're like, well, this is the deadline. You just got to get it done by any means necessary. And so I had that mindset where no matter what, like I had to figure it out. Like I'm gonna lose some sleep. There's some events that I'm just not gonna go to because I have to write. So every day I would be writing 24/7 just to handle working and being able to write at the same time.
That is so funny. That's why I call this podcast the Writing on My Mind podcast. Like you're always thinking about writing,
Mhm.
right? All these goals, all these deadlines and things like that. And you're right, like sacrifice that you have to make to meet the deadlines, to um pay the light bill,
Mhm.
keep the lights on and things like
Right.
that. So yeah, that is
It
crazy.
is. To
Um
this day, I laugh at it when I think about it. I'm like, man, like I did that. But you
Crazy.
know,
Yeah, that's the story, you know what I mean? And so, the people who needed to know, and the people who didn't need to know,
no, that's right. That is right.
I'm being productive.
Exactly. That's all you need to worry about. You're gonna get your. I'm gonna meet the deadlines. Everything is gonna be all right.
Awesome. So now we're gonna hit these lightning round questions.
Okay, let's do
So I'm
it.
gonna ask questions, and you just say, your first thought with
Okay.
these questions, and they're all about, the doctorate journey. So we're gonna get into it right now. All right. So why don't you tell us your favorite mantra?
God is faithful.
Ooh, I love it. Yes, we need some faith, right?
Yes.
Um, what's one thing you couldn't live without during your doctoral journey?
My family.
Mm, I love it. Support, yes. Favorite hype song?
Blessings on blessing by Anthony Brown.
Oh, I love that too.
Listen to it. It will get you
Yes,
hyped.
yes. Okay, I need to do that. Okay. What's your go-to practice to celebrate your wins?
Dinner with friends or karaoke or game night.
Fun, chill. I love
Yes.
it.
But yeah.
Okay, that was the last question. Yay. Thank you so much for sharing your story and inspiring folks. Hopefully everybody could see um can get some nuggets. You shared a lot about community, about sacrifice, mental health, and making sure we're taking care of ourselves, and just the power of people guiding us along our journey and seeing things in us that we may not see, for ourselves. And so
Right.
I appreciate all of these nuggets that you shared with us. And I just want to make sure that people can connect with you if they want to follow up or ask questions or follow you. So could you share some of the ways that people can follow you?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, it's doctor. So it's Dr. _ Kristal. That's Crystal with an I. So it's KRISTALMC. M as in McGregor. And then Facebook and LinkedIn is Kristal McGregor. And it's Crystal again with KRISTAL. And McGregor is McGreggor. And
Awesome. And
they can
I'll
reach out, send me a message. I'm always like there to like just assist, to give feedback. If they want to talk, I'll listen. If you want me to read something, I'll do it, even if I don't understand. But I'll still attempt to do it and tell you what I get from it, because I've learned that in my PhD program that if somebody that's not in your field understand your research, you're doing a phenomenal job.
For sure. For sure. It's not about just the people in your field, but people outside of
Right.
it, for sure. Thank you so much. And I'll add all of your contact information in the show notes too, so that people can connect with you. Again, thank you so much, Dr. McGregor, for sharing your journey with us.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Writing on My Mind podcast. If you're loving the content, make sure to subscribe and rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other women of color doctoral students find the podcast. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Dr. Emanuela. And if you're looking for a group of real women of color doctoral students to help you accomplish your goals, join the Writing on My Mind community by visiting writingonmymindpodcast.com. See you on the next episode.